Drifting deeply into the visual ebb and flow of the DMT, I just walked through the thin fabric of the visual fractal fantasy. It was like a gauze layer of the dream just separated and boom. It was like walking from a dark night into a brightly lit casino in Las Vegas. I felt like I had walked behind the scenes into a series of rooms. Everything was prime color, cranked up to its fullest potential. The images were clear, crisp, and vivid, many times more vivid than the early pre-room images. There were two people, a man and a woman, or a girl and a boy. They appeared to me like simple balloon computer-generated images. As soon as I stepped into the room, they glided up to me and spoke directly to me. They kept saying welcome back and words like the big winner, he's returned, welcome to the end and the beginning. You are the one. As I looked around the room, I felt this sense of some sort of huge celebration upon my entry to this place. The bells were ringing, lights flashing, fear began to rise in me as I felt a deep change in my world. These balloon sprites, they began to lead me down and around this room, showing me how all my life they had been preparing me for this return. I was shown dozens of experiences simultaneously in my life that had led up and had been clues to this moment. I was shown in a flood and an onslaught of images, thoughts, situations, raw feelings that everything had been building to this moment, that this moment had been planned. They told me it was a gift, that I had been selected to be the one. I felt a huge relief and some excitement and some fear in these sprites. At this moment in the experience, I became afraid for my life. I felt that this gift would cost me my life. I didn't want to be the one. The spirits, they felt this fear in me and began to hold my hands and arms, rushing me deeper into their world. I felt their fear and I began to believe that I had stepped out of the dream, out of the drug, out of my body and mind and into this super world. I began to believe in the transformation. As I walked deeper, I could see standing in the middle of the room in the center of this place an object similar to an hourglass. It was slowly turning over, and I became aware that this vessel, as it tipped over, transferring its contents from the small red end to the larger blue end, was transforming me. I felt my humanity slip out as I was filled with this new powerful light, a light of greater perception, of clarity. It felt like returning home. It felt familiar. It felt like I was waking up from a hollow, pale dream of reality. I felt godlike and omnipotent. I realized that this gift was not only a gift, but equally a death sentence for my physical body. I felt like I had been chosen to receive this, not out of benevolence, but out of a need to realize this power and perception. There had to be the one to relieve the others. There had to be the one who perceived completely. I felt like Christ at the moment of realization of godhood and the inevitable moment of his crucifixion. I also felt like all of this knowledge and perception was far too large to be processed by my physical mind, and that death was the obvious transition. As this moment of realization hit me, I felt the sprites smile and step back. They told me I was the one, and this was real, and that it would never end. They said, "Do you not believe? Then see." At this moment, I sat up in the real world and opened my eyes. This moment, true panic set in. I was deeply hallucinating. The real world was being covered, transformed into a psychedelic kaleidoscope of energy. Like every surface had something moving like movie film on it, one image after another lined up like film shown through an overhead projector. These were like the prime images of our symbolic nature, slowly rolling over every surface like the sprites of the objects. I felt I was seeing time in a singularity. I felt like I was seeing the symbolic patterns like a second perception of true meaning. In the real room, there were two people sitting next to me. When I looked at them, I felt reassured momentarily. Then they exploded into dozens of two-dimensional layers of light, looking like computer-generated futurists' paintings. Wafer-thin halos created the shapes of my friends. Dave looked up to me and said, "Welcome back," causing me to panic. Because when he said welcome back, I did not think I was back in reality, but back into the fold of this sort of super world that I was in. Back as their chosen one, or at least one amongst them. I perceived Dave and Poon as my personal guides or guardians or gatekeepers. They were there to welcome me into this new exalted state. That moment stripped me of my world. my truths leading me to believe that my hallucinations were truth. I once again had the crashing feeling of winning, of being chosen, and being forced to receive this unwanted sentence of total vision. I had this crash as soon as I could see once again the cause and effect of my being there and the price I would have to pay. I was the Being King, and the price of my gift would be perceptual transcendence, but physical death. At this time, I felt a collapsing feeling as I gave in to the experience, expecting my fate. I remember thinking that the hourglass had turned a little farther and I was pouring out of this life into my new one. I said out loud, "I'm dying." Then I lost support of my body, myself, my existence, and I began to drift. Dave then touched my leg. I remember being drawn back into my body and thinking, to hell with this, I am not gonna die. Not yet. And I felt the sprite smiling around me, looking at me. I felt the fear. I felt the exhilaration of my visions. I was back in the sprite's room. Even though this place was vibrant and psychedelic, it was within my ability to comprehend. The sprites began their pitch at me, being a winner and the one. I felt they were taking me back down the hallway to open those iconic electric visions and to my death. I then said out loud again, "I'm dying," to which Dave responded, "Only 3 more minutes and you'll be all right." 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes was like a life raft that I sailed out of that world. As soon as I was able to believe that in 3 more minutes I would be normal again, everything began to fade. I felt in control of my body and my life. Slowly, I drifted out of their world and back through the gauzy world of colors and patterns. With a little extra coaxing from my friends, I was able to wake up and separate myself from that moment. I still vibrate from the experience, and I'm really grateful to have been with my friends. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. So check it out. This user's trip report was interesting for a bunch of reasons, but what I want to touch on is this feeling of oneness that he describes having, okay? He felt one with everything. He even went on to say that he felt like Christ and felt as if he had reached godhood. Now, this feeling of oneness, is a feeling that I'm sure if you've used psychedelics, you felt it before. I know I have. And it seems to be a trend in a lot of these trip reports, this feeling of oneness. And when he said that he felt like Christ in that moment, that really stuck out to me. And I thought maybe he might have been experiencing Christ consciousness. So what is Christ consciousness? Christ consciousness is this sort of feeling of oneness, of course, where you feel at one with the divine, a sort of divine unity. Yeah, you're not experiencing things so much from the perspective of the me. Yeah, you're more aligned with the I, the so-called higher self. And I thought that might be what he was experiencing. But from what I understand about Christ consciousness, that's more of an awareness, a state of awareness. Yeah, a sort of passive thing, an experience that you have. So I don't know if that exactly lines up with what I was getting from this user's experience in his trip report. Okay, what it sounds more like is an altered state of consciousness. Okay, he's tripping. He's already in an altered state, right? But this specific feeling of oneness, if it's anything like the oneness that I've felt, it is sort of a energized stillness. Everything's happening at once, therefore nothing's happening at once. It's as if the limits, the boundaries between you and everything else disappear and you truly feel like one. It's a very hard thing to describe. It's as if you have a million fingers reaching out in infinite directions, feeling everything at the same time. It's a very hard concept to explain. I guess you have to feel it. But that seems a lot more akin to what this user was feeling, and it makes perfect sense why he felt like almighty and powerful in that moment. It's a pretty overwhelming experience. Um, so tell me, have any of you felt this feeling of oneness, and what are some takeaways that you got from it? Now, mind you, DMT isn't the only way to get this feeling. Sure, other psychedelics offer it as well. Yeah. But meditation offers the same feeling. Sure, it's going to take longer. It's going to take a little bit more discipline, a little bit more patience, and a little bit more training, sure, but it's definitely there for you. One of the meditations that I love to do is from the Gateway Experience. Okay. I talk about it a lot because it works. All right. And let me just go ahead and dispel any misunderstandings about the Gateway Experience. It's not a CIA funded program. No, the CIA did their own study on this existing sort of method, if you will, that was really championed by Bob Monroe at the Monroe Institute. Now, a lot of people don't know that his method actually incorporates a lot of Eastern techniques in its meditation practice. But it does it in such a straightforward and direct way that you can reach the same level of meditations, the same depth as somebody who has been practicing transcendental meditation for decades. You can achieve that within days and weeks, absolutely. And they do this by synchronizing your brain hemispheres and bringing them down to beta, theta, and delta level, so you can have these truly mystical experiences. Anyway, a couple of these focus states sound exactly like what was talked about in this trip report, okay? And that's specifically focus 12 and focus 15, okay? Focus 12 is a state of expanded awareness. You expand your consciousness to go beyond your physical body. And focus 15 is when you essentially expand your consciousness to a place outside of time and space, okay? And in these states, yeah, you feel exactly what this user was talking about in their trip report. You're in this infinite void, aware of all things at once, and you are no longer the self. You are now the I, a sort of glimpse, a taste of this Godhead, this Godhood, sort of like what this user was talking about. So anyway, yes, I'm interested in hearing what your experiences were, what you thought about this trip report. If you've ever felt this oneness in your own DMT practice or in your own life. Thanks again for sticking around to the end of the video. It's been awesome doing these for you all. And I'll see you in the next video. See ya.